What is going on, Colts Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. Colts GM Chris Ballard met with the media earlier today, gave his thoughts on a wide variety of topics. Obviously, the NFL draft being at the forefront here. So we're going to talk about everything that Chris Ballard was asked and some of his answers as well here. So let's dive right into this, Derek, when it comes to this. But before we do that, just want to let you guys know this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you need to talk to a licensed therapist, be sure to visit BetterHelp. And when you sign up, visit betterhelp.com/juice today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/juice. Be sure to do that, guys. Your well-being is worth it. All right, Derek, let's jump right in here to what Chris Ballard had to say when he met the media earlier today. There's a lot of good stuff here that I want to dive into. One of the things that he talked about, especially when it came to this draft, that I want to start with here, Derek, is he was asked about they called them the blue players, right? The blue chip guys. And Chris Ballard admitted, especially considering the last couple of years, there aren't as many necessarily blue chip guys that stand out right away, right? So my immediate thought was what does that mean exactly for what the Indianapolis Colts are thinking there at pick 14, right? Does that mean they think, oh, there's a player we need to trade up for? Or does that mean they think maybe we should trade back? Or should we stay right there because we think we're going to get one of those guys? I don't know what your thoughts were on that, Derek, but that was definitely an interesting comment that Chris Ballard said. The top end, there wasn't as many, but then he said the depth is really good in this draft. And he talked about rounds 2 to 5, talking about the depth a lot more. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I don't remember. I believe it was Adam Schefter that said something about it way back, near the end of the football season, where he said that, picks 20 through 50, there's or even 60, the level of talent is so even, it's actually insane. And, that's just covering round 2. I mean, we even talked about it, in the 3rd round, there's going to be a lot of offensive linemen that can still be day 1 starters, linebackers, running backs, even some corners and safeties that can be. The stuff just keeps going. So there definitely is a lot of guys that are going to be good quality depth guys that you can get that are really going to make an impact for this team, even in those later rounds.
Right. And I guess the question is, where do you feel like if you're Chris Ballard, the high-end talent, kind of how he described it, those blue chip guys, where do you feel like that line ends, right? Is it top 10? Is it pick 14? Is it pick 19? Where is it? So that's the thing. I am just so curious about what does that mean? Do the Colts have 14 players on the board that they believe are worth staying put or trading up for? Or do they say it's 5, 6, 7 guys and we're not going to trade up for that. We're going to trade back. And we're going to still get a pretty high-quality player there regardless of that and potentially acquire more draft capital. That's kind of what I'm kind of wrestling with. Where does that kind of sit for the Colts? Because it could go either way there.
Yeah, it will definitely keep an eye out for if they stay at 14, then we know whichever player they take was still on their big board, right? So ultimately, it's going to be what's going to be fun to see here is, how desperate are the Indianapolis Colts with that 14th overall pick, and who are some of those players that are worth taking for them at that spot.
Absolutely. Yeah, one thing Ballard said in regards to that pick and just picks they've made in the past, he mentioned the idea, Derek, of having a player that you draft that has something unique about them, right? Something that they do very, very well, right? Whether it's athletically, whether, it's some other aspect of their game on or off the field, whether it's the X's and O's, whether it's off the field or the preparation, whatever it is, right? They need to have something or multiple things, multiple traits that really stand out, right? So when looking at that, we've seen the Indianapolis Colts do that before in kind of different ways, right? We've seen the physical with a guy like Anthony Richardson. We've seen like the production with a guy like Latu last year, right? So we've seen a little bit of everything. So how do you marry the two, Derek? How do you marry the production and also some of the traits? How do you kind of figure out what makes a player like a blue chip player here, I guess, like when it comes to all those things? That's one of the things I'm curious about. Like, how do you marry those two and do it the right way?
Yeah, and honestly, that probably gets differentiated depending on who you talk to, right? So that's ultimately what it comes down to is there's either guys that are so amazingly gifted from an athletic standpoint that you forget that the production's just usually not there, or the production is so great that sometimes you just forget or you just don't match them together. But the real blue chip guy is really the guy where he has those balance of the production and the athleticism, right? So when I think of blue chip players, I think a lot in terms of there are a few blue chip players on Indianapolis. I think a couple of those guys are, you think about Quentin Nelson, right? An athletic lineman, but also a guy that you look at him, he's as rugged as anybody you've ever seen block him for a quarterback. I mean, he has everything that you need there. Jonathan Taylor, a blue chip player there. A guy that in college, I mean, you have an argument he's one of the Mount Rushmore running backs of college football. I mean, you have an argument for that. I mean, the numbers that he put up have been insane. But when you look at what he is as a player, he's the ultimate package. When you're 6 foot and you're 225 pounds, but yet you can still run a below 4.4 at your top speed, and you have all these different things that go with you, that's a blue chip player. Like, you just have these guys that just have it. You can see it when you watch it. It's not taking advantage of the moments that they're given. They create those moments. They create those plays that make you go, this wasn't the team that put me in this moment. I put myself in this moment. And that's kind of the players that you're really trying to look at is, sure, there's productive guys, but there's also guys that, again, they're productive, but they're productive in the sense that that's going to translate to the next level. We haven't 100% seen it. It's kind of like Latu right now. We saw the production. We saw that he's had 12 sacks each of his last 2 seasons at UCLA. So no doubt the production is there. But how is that going to translate to the NFL? We haven't quite seen that just yet. But, I mean, that's, again, just one of those certain situations where you just can tell from a blue chip player that it's going to translate to the next level.
Well, Ballard, I mean, he threw out the prime example of Darius Leonard, right? A guy that he said he has the best instincts of anybody I've ever seen in my life. Like, he knew how to get to the ball. Like you said, he put himself in positions. He's like, Matt Eberflus wasn't scheming him to knock out the ball on 30 seconds left in the game in playing against Houston, right? He just did those things. He had those instincts to do that. We knew he was physically talented, but he had the it factor, right? You just could tell. Anytime he was on the field, he knew how to make critical plays in the critical moments. He knew how to do what was needed to do in order to be on track, if he would have stayed healthy, to be one of the best players that we maybe have ever seen at the linebacker position. That's how productive he was. So, like, those type of players that have those things, but also just have like the on-field instincts as well. That's another thing that he definitely talked about, which I think is huge too. Like, you can talk about, this guy's this size, he's got this wingspan, whatever, but instincts is also a massive thing as well there. So that was something he also talked about when it came to that, is the instincts part of it on the field.
Yeah. Finding a guy that is going to be that high character guy, but also is going to be a guy that has, and it's not the productivity, it's their, like he said, those instincts. And, that's also something that's very hard to do for a player. Like, that's where watching the tape a lot of times comes into play, and being able to actually decipher the tape and make sure that that person actually has those tendencies and those instincts. Because when these guys talk at the combine, when these guys do their on the field workouts and their pro days and stuff, like that stuff doesn't teach you instincts. That doesn't get people to understand the nitty gritty of players' instincts. The main thing you go back to look at is the film, and then you try to decipher it there, and you hope that you're smart enough to know what player has those instincts, what player doesn't. And like you said, I mean, Ballard, he's hit on that a few times, but some others he just hasn't quite gotten to that level, though.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's continue on. He talked about a few different position groups I want to highlight as well, Derek. The big one, obviously, is the tight end position. We've talked about it a lot. Chris Ballard talked about the tight end position ad nauseum today. He had multiple questions asking about that. He said they like their current group, as Chris Ballard always does, but also understood, there's the fact that there is the reality that the Colts can get a guy that can truly help in the middle of the field. Like that was a big thing. And when actually asked about like the tight end position and what he's looking for, he mentioned, having a guy that can do a little bit of everything, right? A guy that's a 3-down player that can, be on the field, doesn't have to come off for special occasions, right? Can be that receiving threat in the middle, but also can hold his own as a blocker, right? And I think that's definitely big too. Tyler Warren's kind of the prime example of that. He's the guy that can do it all. And there's some other players that could project that, but at the current moment, not necessarily as well-rounded as Tyler Warren. So he kind of talked about that, but he also acknowledged the fact that it's a really good tight end class, not just in round one, but even like on day 2. There's some quality players in this class. So what were your takeaways on what Ballard had to say in regards to the tight end position in the draft?
It was definitely interesting. They said a guy that can be out there for all 3 downs, right? So that to me just basically says if you're a Herald fan and that door's out the window, you have to look at guys that are going to be in there all the time. Think about guys like Elijah Arroyo that I don't think would be in there all the time. I think of guys like Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland, maybe a Mason Taylor, maybe even a Gunnar Helm. Those are the types of names I think about when I hear every down tight ends. But yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked when he says, the make sure to, not chase after people, because he's always had that motto. He's always said that, we're not going to chase people just because it might be a position of need. We want to get the best players available in the positions in which we're at.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, that is an absolute reality. Like, if there's a guy you don't deem worthy of that 14th pick, don't pick him just because it's necessarily a need. Like, if there's a guy you can get a little bit later, or if you can trade back and still get that guy, then do it, right? Don't hamper yourself by taking a less player because it's a position of need. I totally understand that. I agree with that 100% when it comes to that. He also mentioned, Derek, the quarterback competition. He was asked about that. He says he believes that it's going to bring the best out of both guys. He said both players have their ups, have their downs, but he does believe this competition is going to bring out the best. The big thing that kind of raised some eyebrows, and again, could be Ballard trolling, could be some, a little bit of truth within that sarcasm, but he talked about the possibility if there's a quarterback, Colts wouldn't necessarily close the door on adding another quarterback into this competition, which was kind of, I don't know if he was trolling or not, but man, that definitely got the attention of some people.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. If the Indianapolis Colts take a quarterback in the first round, I'm going to throw something in this room. when Cody, when you're sitting right here and I'm sitting right here, and then we see a quarterback get taken in the first round, there is something that's getting thrown into a wall. I'm telling you.
Oh man. Well, I'm hopefully he's just trolling there. But we'll see, man. Maybe a little bit later in the draft, we could see the Colts take a chance on the quarterback. They do have an opening at QB3 right now with Sam Ehlinger leaving. So that's one thing that he talked about. He also mentioned the kicker position, Spencer Schrader. Colts, obviously, he was on their practice squad, went to a couple other teams, was actually 5 for 5 on his field goals, 9 for 9 on his extra points. And so the Colts brought him back, and they said it had less to do about Matt Gay, had more to do about Spencer Schrader, which is interesting. I don't know how true that is 100%. because let's be honest, Matt Gay couldn't hit a 50-yard field goal last year. But also he threw in the fact that they'll add another kicker of some sort, add some more competition in there. So that was one thing of note there when it came to the kicker position. And, when you kind of looked at it also, he mentioned the fact that, he was asked the question about, does he feel like, because he feel like he's on the hot seat, right? Does he feel like a pressure, or does that change his approach at all? And he said, no. He said, I'm going to do what's best for the franchise. I'm going to do what's best for the team. So I don't know what your thoughts were on that, Derek, but that was kind of some interesting comments that he made in regards to a few positions, a few different strategies there, and kind of some Ballard talk we've heard of before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still tend to think that because of the situation that Ballard finds himself in, definitely could be a lot more aggressive in how he approaches these picks here, and might go with somebody that they typically wouldn't. So I doubt that we'll have a situation where he could very well stay with the same strategy as he normally does. But who knows at this point? Circumstances have changed a lot.
Yeah. The one final thing I'll bring up here, Derek, is the fact that there was two other positions he mentioned I didn't talk about here. He talked about the idea of, finding a linebacker. He said Jalen Carlisle, which, by the way, had offseason surgery, but he said Jalen Carlisle is the player we felt like transitioned well from linebacker, but that's a position we're looking to potentially address there. And he also talked about the trenches, which is a typical Ballard thing. Ballard answer, Ballard approach. He said you can never have enough good players in the trenches. So, Derek, could we see the Colts go trench heavy in this draft again outside of tight end?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, watch, there's going to be at least 3 offense and defensive linemen in this draft. 100%.
You only think 3? I think 4 or 5, to be honest with you.
Could easily, I said it would easily be 3. It could very well be 4 or 5. You never know.
Well, especially because we've heard about this deep defensive line class. We've heard about, some edge guys potentially even outside of round 1. Heck, we've heard about offensive line as well, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all there if the Colts went trench heavy whenever they find their tight end. So we'll have to see, guys, but let us know your thoughts here on some of Chris Ballard's comments here at his pre-draft press conference this morning. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. But, guys, that'll do it for this one. If you haven't already, be sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and get prepared, guys, because we are going live Thursday evening for 3 days of the NFL draft. You guys don't want to miss it. We hope you will tune along with us there for rounds 1 through 7 on the 3 days, and obviously all the other stuff that goes within that night. Just come hang out with us. We have a lot of fun together, so hopefully you guys will tune in as well. But, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, guys, go Colts.